Yo, what is up, everybody? It's your boy Soto here with Autumn Bin Bags, back with another one. All right. So, you know, some cool things going on right now. There's some things going on in the news and some things going on with the team and different things here and there. So, want to make sure that I hop on here on a bright, sunny Saturday before I go out. I was out earlier and came back in, did a little something, something. Now I'm going to go out later, but want to make sure to hop on, talk to you guys. First things first, everybody, please like, comment, and subscribe. That's how you can support this channel and help us out as best you can. So much respect. Tell your friends, tell your haters, tell your mamas, tell everybody, please. All right. Let's hide that. Enough of that shit. So, what the hell is going on? I want to start with this because I want to talk about it and I want to get it out of the way because I know that people are like, oh, I want to talk about the Raiders. No, it's not. That's fine. I'm going to talk about the Raiders. Don't worry. But what is going on here? So, if you guys didn't hear, and I don't know how I heard, I think it just came up on my Twitter or something, or I heard on some sports news or something like that. Apparently, Tom Brady, minority Raiders owner Tom Brady, and Kim Kardashian were seen getting extra close and kind of friendly at this dude Michael Rubin's all-white party he has for 4th of July or whatever in the Hamptons in New York over the long 4th of July weekend. Wow. So at least she's stepping up. She's going from like regular old athletes to like crazy musicians to now like GOAT athlete minority owners in the NFL. So she's trending upwards as far as who she's connected to. So here's the thing. I, for one, am not. If you look, Kim Kardashian, when she first started out, I think she was like the personal stylist or whatever for Paris Hilton. Okay, but she was a known commodity in the LA area. People knew who she was. If you knew Kim Kardashian back in the day, there is no doubt she would end up dating somebody connected to the Raiders. Okay, because if you would have seen her back in the day, Kim Kardashian was a straight chola. And this looks like a legit Raiders fan to me. I've known and I knew plenty of fine-ass chicks who looked like this when they were younger. And damn near all of them are Raider fans. So, take it for what you will. Yeah, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, whatever. I don't know whose tongue was in whose cheeks. But that's the word on the street that Tom Brady and Kim Kardashian were seen getting a little extra close. But yeah, looking at this picture, does it really surprise you that she's now with a Raider? Not me. All right, enough of that shit. Get the crap out of here. All right. Let's see who's here to say hello. Big Bob always. Mark Salter, Super Omnicron. Yeah. Yep. And you know what? Super Omnicron. That's exactly what I'm going to talk about first. Okay. Thank you for putting that up. Now, running back market update. Like I said last time I was on live, we're coming up close. We're, 15, 16, like next Monday, not the Monday coming up, but the following Monday, that's the deadline. I think it's like 4 p.m. Eastern or something like that, where a team can sign or can rescind a franchise tag, which means if they sign someone who's on a franchise tag or who was offered a franchise tag, didn't sign it, who was offered a franchise tag, they can then sign them to a long-term deal and rescind that franchise tag. Okay. If the Raiders don't sign Josh Jacobs by that deadline on the 17th, the only way they can really have him under contract is with the franchise tag. Because if not, they have to rescind it, and then he's a regular free agent and can sign with whoever he wants. So the Raiders aren't going to do that. So they're not going to rescind the tag. They're just going to be like, all right, dude, well, if you don't want to sign ahead of time, then it's going to have to be the tag. So here's the latest that I heard. All right. The latest that I heard from, I think it was the Herd. I was listening to Colin Cowherd on the Herd. And they reported that Saquon Barkley was offered a contract very similar to the one that Derrick Henry is currently on. Why is that significant? Well, first off, it's the average annual value of this is about $12.5 million. But forget all that. Forget all that. That doesn't matter. What do the players really care about? And what do like fans and what do we really focus on? We focus on guaranteed money cap hit. That's what we focus on, right? Guaranteed money. Okay. This is what I heard. I haven't seen it reported, but I heard that Saquon Barkley was offered something in the realm of, let's just say, just to have square numbers here, a 4-year contract, $27 million guaranteed. Now, doesn't seem like a lot of money, but if you break it down the way it actually is, the contract that Derrick Henry is on is very similar to that. He had about $15 million up front in the signing bonus, right? And he had about a $6.5 million guaranteed the first 2 seasons. So there's the 27, right? There's 6.5. Oh, that's about 28. So it's very similar. 12 million or 6 million guaranteed for the first 2 years, 15 million due at signing. You put that all together, it's 27 million guaranteed. Now, what does that mean? In essence, that means it's a 2-year, $27 million contract. So if you do that per year, $13.5 million. That's right at where the top running back is getting paid. Bijan Robinson is getting paid for Atlanta. Now, that's the positive. You're getting an average annual value of $13.5 million for those first 2 years. The negative is the last 2 years, non-guaranteed money. Probably they can cut and walk away after 2 seasons. Not optimal if you're a running back, but in a lot of these contract negotiations, there's going to be a give and take. So what does that mean for us? Like I said last week, now the reason why I wasn't paying too much attention to what Tony Pollard was doing in Dallas, it kind of slipped my mind, but he was on a different tag, not the same franchise tag that Saquon and Josh Jacobs are on. He already signed that tag. He's kind of pushed out of the way. So it's really Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs. They're kind of married together, right? What one does, the other one will probably do. Maybe a dollar more or whatever. So the reason why this is important is Saquon has the deal. I'm sure the Raiders know kind of the parameters of that deal, right? Now, they don't have to get everything signed like, they can just get something done in principle, like get it signed, and then, we're going to revisit it. And that's happened before too. So what we're doing here is if Saquon signs that deal, I don't see Josh Jacobs being too far behind. What does that do for us? Cash-wise, we got the cash. People want to say, oh, the Raiders are poor and they're a poor franchise and this and that. They're making money hand over fist with that stadium. They're making money hand over fist in Vegas, okay? All right. I'm sure they have the $15 million to spend to put in escrow, or the $27 million, 15 to cut them right now, and the other 12 to put in escrow because it's guaranteed money. I'm sure that's the case. Now, the reason why this is important is you got a little over a week, maybe about a week and a half until this thing has to get finalized. Now, things can happen quickly in the NFL, but I mean, I don't know if it's going to happen this quickly. So this has to happen within the next 5 days or so. If we haven't heard any movement on the Saquon Barkley front by like Thursday, then we might have a problem. I don't see Josh Jacobs coming in too early on a franchise tag. If he does play on the franchise tag, it's going to be right up till the beginning of the season, maybe even a week or two into the season. All he's doing is losing money himself for whatever reason. I don't know. But I think for all involved, it would be a great deal if Saquon signs this deal, gets his average annual guaranteed money. Now, that's just guaranteed. It's going to be worth more. But just the guaranteed money breaks down this way. But, I mean, for example, Derrick Henry signed that contract with the guaranteed money around 25, 27, but the total contract was about $50 million for 4 years, about 12 and a half a year. Very similar. So I want to say this. This deal has already been proposed. From what I've heard, this deal has already been proposed to Saquon Barkley, and he's mulling it over. Of course, like anybody, we're not going to take the first offer. I doubt this is the first offer. And I know that both Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs wouldn't be super thrilled with signing a contract that's basically already been signed like 3 years ago. They want to increase. Well, in essence, they are increasing because they're getting more money for the 2 seasons. They're getting more money guaranteed. Is that what they want? Do they want more? Do they want to hit that 15, 16 range? Possibly. Probably. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't know. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. I think that the Giants and Saquon deal is a lot closer. I think their negotiation is a lot more amicable. It's a lot more, I don't want to say civil because I don't think it's contentious between Josh and the Raiders. I just think there's been more communication. Saquon Barkley has showed up to team activities. He hasn't participated. It's a sit-in, right? He's there, but he's not participating. But he's showing his face and he's, giving interviews and he's talking to the media and stuff. I haven't heard really Josh Jacobs say much of anything. He's tweeted a couple times. He's gone back and forth with some fans talking shit. Okay, but what's the deal here? What's happening? The problem that a lot of players specifically, they feel like everyone should be on their side because they're the player, right? But they don't want to give us any information about what is actually happening. Maybe what kind of contract were you offered, things like that. Things that wouldn't necessarily damage negotiations, because I understand that the Raiders are really zipped up and tight-lipped and everything. But, like, if you're that worried about your image and what is happening that you're going to clap back at your fans on Twitter, maybe you should give us a little bit more context. Maybe you should give us a little bit more of what's going on. All we hear is like bad business. I'm not just doing it for me. I'm doing it for the running backs of the future, blah, 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 this and that. That's all we're getting from Josh Jacobs recently. Does that really matter? No, it doesn't really matter as far as negotiations go. But if he's looking to be a sympathetic figure, he may want to change his tactic. That's all I'm saying. Because he's not doing himself any favors by, being cryptic and being, really secretive about things. And I can appreciate being secretive. And I actually hope that it stays that way. But like I'm saying, is from Josh Jacobs' perspective, if he's going to, go at his own fans on Twitter about them not knowing what's going on, he maybe should give us some more information. All righty. Moving right along. Okay. Here's the thing. I'm going to hit you guys with some numbers. Now, I'm not gonna put it up on the screen, do all that shit, because you can look. You can go to Twitter and look at this at Sharp Analytics. Sharp Football on Twitter. Okay, you can look at that. Warren Sharp. I like his stuff. He's really good. These are some reasons why I believe that our running game really isn't as tied to Josh Jacobs as many people would like to think. Why is that? Well, we'll get into that right now. I think that after looking at these numbers and after processing the information, now these numbers weren't all in the same place. I had to put these numbers together, look at different things, right? We all know a couple of things about Josh Jacobs. He has good speed, not great speed, but good enough. He's got an insane jump cut. His change of direction while keeping, his velocity is pretty rare. He can cut and jump and stay in stride and gain those extra yards that normally people wouldn't get. He also led the league in yards after contact last season. I think it was about 900 yards, which is key. He had 1,600 yards rushing, and almost 900 of those, or about 900 of those, were after contact. That's huge. But when you take a look at some of these numbers, it kind of gives a better picture of what actually happened in the running game last season. So, last season, and I'll explain all this stuff. Last season, the Raiders faced the 8th fewest in percentage of snaps, 8th fewest loaded boxes in the NFL. Only 66.5% of the time did they face 7 or more defenders in the box. Okay, remember that. As a team, they had the 10th fewest number of runs stuffed, 1 yard gained or less, with at least 2 yards to go. So 1st and 10, for 2nd and 5, whatever. You run the ball, you get 1 yard or less. That's a stuff. Okay, at least 2 yards to go, and gaining at least 1 yard. They had the 10th fewest, so that kind of coincides, right? Josh Jacobs was 13th, only 24.8, 25% of the time. So a quarter of the time his runs were stuffed. Okay, put all that together. It's not a coincidence that as a team, right, we had the 10th fewest percentage of runs stuffed. We also faced the 8th fewest loaded boxes. Put it together. When you face fronts that aren't set to stop the run, it should be easier for you to run. That is not exclusively on the running back. That's on scheme. That's on play call. And that's on your offensive line. So the person who makes up the scheme, the person who calls the plays, and the offensive line, by and large, are the same as they were last year. I don't see that changing too much this year. What will be changing, maybe, is who's running the ball. I also do see Josh Jacobs, if we sign him to like this similar type of deal, we have him for at least 2 seasons, I don't see him getting like 300 touches again this year. You're using up a guy 2 years in a row that you need to have for a 3rd season. I don't think we're going to do that. We're going to have a little bit more of a mix at running back. But you go to and you look at one of those stats that was very impressive, which is yards after contact. Well, when you are facing less linebackers and more defensive backs, that could be a little bit better yards after contact. When you're facing maybe more of a passing defense to stop a pass, you're not getting the big huge run stuffer guys in there. Just because it's a yard after contact, just because Josh Jacobs was getting these yards after contact, doesn't mean he was getting solid contact. Okay, And the fact that we face so few loaded boxes kind of goes to show you the teams weren't super worried about stopping Josh Jacobs. They were more worried about stopping the passing game. Okay, so that's a little bit of information. Do with that information what you will. You can be like, oh, that's bullshit. Freaking Zamir White and all these Britton Brown and all these guys, they can't do half of what Josh Jacobs. You can have an opinion all you want. I'm giving you numbers and I'm giving you reasons why. Is Josh Jacobs a talented back? Yes, he's a very talented back. However, there were a lot of things going in his favor. People talk really bad about the offensive line. Okay, I understand there's not a lot of big names. Just one guy and a bunch of just who are those guys, right? But they weren't too bad last year. They're about middle of the pack in passing, block, middle of the pack in run blocking. Also, when you don't face defenses that are geared around stopping the run, it's a little bit easier to run the ball. Is that going to happen again this year? No, seeing as Josh Jacobs is now a legit star in the league. Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. Are teams going to be loading the box because of the presence of Josh Jacobs and they're looking for a Jimmy G to beat them in the air? They would rather lose by Jimmy G beating them than Josh Jacobs beating them. That's also a possibility as well. All we can go by is what we know, and what we know is what I just told you. We didn't face a lot of loaded boxes that gave us better running room. Excuse me. I don't know what the hell happened there. Gave us better running room and better fronts to run against. And Josh Jacobs did his job. So that all worked together. It's all a team effort like we talked about. All right, let's see what kind of comments we got going on here. Anything? William Merchant, 30 million in dead cap this year. We can't continue to do that. Jacobs will need to sign that tag. No chance the Eagle creates a potential high dead cap situation. I think we can avoid that dead cap situation by front loading these deals. Just go with me here. Since that $10 million, that 10.9 or whatever, 10.1, or just 10.1 or 10.09, I guess, it's 10.1 million. Let's just say that. That $10.1 million franchise tag is already counting against our cap because we have to have that money available should Josh Jacobs decide to sign it. So if we give him a $12 million signing bonus, let's just say, and we give him that 10-1 this year, that's 22 of the 27 million that's guaranteed already given to him. We can then, for the second year of the contract, give the rest of the guaranteed money and absorb most of the cap hit that season because it's going to be very similar to, let's say, if you would have signed a little less, if you were to sign 2 franchise tags in a row, where we could be pretty much scot-free the last 2 years if we decide to move on after 2 years. That's very possible. And it's definitely doable because we have the cash to give and we have the cap space this season to fit that cap number of 10-1 into the cap. It's already baked in there already. Now, what can we do? Can we do the 15 with a 7 and save $3 million in cap to maybe spend on somebody else? Yeah, we could. But that's ended up kind of kicking our ass recently. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But yeah, it's possible. It's possible to get around a huge dead cap hit the last 2 seasons if we do go for a 4-year contract. William Merchant, but Zeus and the other running backs can't read blocks like Jacobs. Can Zeus learn to read blocks that Jacobs holds out or is traded? Yes, I think he can. People want to talk about, well, Zamir White got all his yards on 2 rushes. The rest of them were blah. Well, we saw right here the leading rusher in the NFL, a quarter of his carries were a yard or less. So that's just the way the NFL works, you know? So I don't see a huge amount of drop off with Zamir White. I just don't. I think that Josh Jacobs gives us a better running game, him himself, by his skill. I don't see Zamir White not being able to get pretty darn close to that. That's just me. That's just what I think. You guys can think something different, and that's fine. Nate Dogg, how important would it be for Bijan Robinson to play out his rookie contract healthy for the future of the running back position? I think it would be huge if Bijan Robinson is able to be that Christian McCaffrey plus, like people say he is, and be healthy these next 4 seasons or 5 if you count the 5th season of you're opt in, the team opts in for the 5th year. I think it would be huge. The thing is you're having to take a look at like the tippy top tier of running back and then everybody else. And I think that's where a lot of these guys, maybe egos are taking a hit when they see these young guys coming into the league who haven't proven anything, but you see that the skills are there, and you see that running back is probably the easiest position to transition from college to pro. And you have, what's that fucker's name in Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, for Detroit. Look, if those 2 guys, both first round picks, if those 2 running backs, Gibbs and Robinson, ball out, you have to then compare the running back you're speaking of to those guys, right? And if they're not those guys, then you don't get paid like those guys. There's a huge difference in the running back position to the quarterback position. One of the things is there are more really good running backs that will allow you to win than there are, let's say, really good quarterbacks that will allow you to win. And the quarterback market or the quarterback position has been shown to be a lot more integral into the wins and losses of a team than a running back. That's why their pay structure and their average annual salary is growing exponentially, whereas the running back market is kind of staled a little bit. I think what's happening is the running backs are seeing, since this is a passing league, I have to be able to do it all. I can't just run the ball. I have to be able to run and be damn good at that. I have to be able to catch the ball and be damn good at that and be a super weapon like that. If you can be that guy, then you can get paid a lot of money. But the problem is there are not too many of those guys available. Usually it's like a Josh Jacobs, who is like a really good runner. He's done better at catching passes, but he's not the kind of guy that's going to go out into a route and burn a corner with his route running ability. He's a guy that catches dump offs and check and screens and things like that, and he goes after the catch. But he's not a guy that's going to attack the defense with his route running skills. Okay, Ray Bosby, Soto. If Josh Jacobs doesn't sign the tag by July 17th, I think we move on. Your thoughts? I think we hold his rights, and I wouldn't just rescind the tag. I would just keep it and maybe be able to trade him for something. But honestly, if somebody sticks their feet in the dirt and they're like, no, I am not playing on a franchise tag. I want to have a big long-term contract. Okay. And if you're not in a position to do that, which I don't know that we are, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. Best case scenario, Saquon signs that deal. Josh Jacobs signs one very close to that. And we all move on, and we don't lose a ton of cap. We don't lose any cap this year because it's cap that we're already spending. That $10 million in cap is what we were already spending with the franchise tag. We give them some guaranteed money, about 15 mil. We only have a couple million left to offer them the next year as far as cap hit and guaranteed money. We can ease the dead cap hit should we move on. It's just smart all the way around. All right, cool. Roland Orantes. Sorry, don't think we need to pay JJ this year to keep him on the cap, see how he performs. If outplays again, then we offer him 13, 14 a year. It's something like 10 million to sign to bring the cap down. It's possible. The issue is every year you wait, potentially the price could go up. If you tag a running back the second year, it's going to be a pretty big cap number because it's all guaranteed money. It's all cap. So who knows, man? Who knows? Salvatore Bruno, nice picture. Hey Juan, I think we save about 30 million in dead money from bad contracts from players not even here. Is that true? Love your show. Thanks, Sal. Appreciate it. Yes, this is the last season where we're really in like dead cap hell. Next season, a lot of that shit drops off the books. Littleton's gone. Kwiatkowski's gone. Leatherwood is gone. Carr's last 6 mil is gone. I think Waller had a little bit. There's a lot of those bad contracts that we've signed that are still on the books that we can get away from at the end of the year. William Merchant, I think we move on for a first-round pick. Other than that, let Jay just screw himself if you're sign the tag. Mr. Merchant, I don't know that anyone's going to give us a first-round pick for Josh Jacobs. I just don't think that someone's willing to give that kind of money for a running back that's already 4 years in, who, I mean, doesn't have severe injury history, but has a history of getting nicked up, and only one elite production year. So, yeah, I don't think we're going to get a first for him. If we get like a third for him, I think that's probably, about right. That's why I didn't understand why people were shitting on getting a third for Waller. Like, dude, third round picks, those are fucking good ass picks. Dude, you saw who was available in the third round this year in the draft. So those are some good ass picks. Of course, if you're talking about the best receiver in the league, yeah, you get a first and second for him, which we gave up for Devontae Adams. So yeah, I don't know that we get a first for JJ. The reason why I'm talking about this is I got another stat. It was just in passing I got, but it was on PFF. They talked about the state of the franchises and the caps. Right now, PFF has ranked the Raiders as the 29th worst, so damn near at the bottom in our roster situation. Big problem is we don't have a lot of revolving money that's going to be low price on the books. The reason for that is poor drafting. The last few years, especially like 2021, 2020, 2019, those drafts, we should have players on our roster that are still on their rookie contracts, but are like 3-year vets. So they're producing like veterans, but they're still on rookie deals. And there's not quite time for them to get re-upped yet. We don't really have that. What we do have is the fifth, count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth oldest roster in the NFL. Why is that, you say? Because a lot of these roster holes that we have to fill are filled by low-cost veterans. Why is this such a big deal when it comes to roster construction? I will tell you. First, we already talked about it. You're paying more for less, and you're paying more for shorter. Instead of having rookie guys on rookie contracts that are producing on your team that are in, let's say year 3 or year 4 that are on very manageable deals, you have older players who have already shown you who they're going to be, and they're okay, but they're not going to perform too crazy, right? You have those guys that you're paying a lot more for. Whereas, a third-round pick, their total value for their contract is probably like $3 million for like 4 years, when you're paying $2 million for 1 year of a veteran corner, or $2.5 million. You see what I'm saying? Instead of 3 years or 4 years, you get only 1 year. And that guy, that 1 year may not be all that good. And the next season, you have to replace him again if you don't replace him through the draft or with undrafted free agents, stuff like that. Also, the more free agents you sign, the less chances you're going to get for compensatory picks. And as of right now, we got, I think, 1 third-round compensatory pick coming up next season. So I think we're only going to have like six draft picks right now, or 7 maybe. I think we have 6 picks, and then we have a compensatory pick. So it's just nuts, man. What I'm saying is we have to take a look at all this stuff when we really blast organizations for not going out and getting more guys, because you're really screwing up your future cap as well, and you're screwing yourself over of compensatory picks. That's why I think we're doing a lot with like the mentorship program with ex players coming in to help coach. A lot of we're getting players from like what was that thing? The players from international, like we got that kid from Africa, or 2 guys that were guys from Africa. You potentially get compensatory picks for doing that and helping in these programs, depending on how well those players progress. So there's a lot of things you can do to get more comp picks, but as of right now, I think we only have 1 comp pick coming up in the 2024 draft. But yeah, GMs have to look at that stuff. So if you're constantly replacing bad 1-year players with more bad 1-year players, you're not going to really get anywhere, because you're not keeping the costs under control. You're constantly have to go out and try to find a needle in a haystack when it comes to low cost veterans. It's not a way to build a future. All right. M85, what's up, man? If Gruden gets another chance, you'd have to be on drugs to allow him power over the team itself. Head coach, yeah, man. I don't know that you give him personnel decisions, because the thing is I was talking to someone about this, a friend of mine who's a football fan. He's a fan of another team. But he's like, oh, you're still complaining about Gruden and Mayock that the last drafted a couple of years ago. Well, we're going to feel the effects of that Gruden Mayock draft for another couple of years after this, simply because we're not able to scout and develop our own players, so we know what we're getting in free agency or when we extend players, right? We're having to get players from other teams to fit roles that homegrown players should have filled. And that's going to diminish over the years, but it's not going to go away, at the snap of a finger. If you wanted it to go away at the snap of a finger, you would have just let everyone go, get as many picks as you could, and hope those picks worked out, that you wanted to keep them past their first contract. Look, man, it's hard, man. It's hard when you're this bad at drafting, where so many of your picks are not on your team, let alone on active rosters in the NFL, let alone in the NFL at all. It's hard, man. It's hard to pick up the pieces. So honestly, I think we should take a step back and quit, really harassing and looking down on the front office right now, because they were given a shit sandwich that they're going to have to eat, in smaller and smaller bites, but for a few years to come, because of all this. And that's the main reason why we're in the 29th position right now, as far as roster health for the next 3 seasons per PFF. Now, it just seems like we're going in opposite directions. Offensively, we're loading up, and defensively, we're rebuilding. So it's kind of like a mishmash of what our goal and our view and our vision is for the future. All we can hope for is that the players that we're signing are going to be able to push an upseat the high-priced veterans that we have offensively, and the low-cost rookies are going to be able to develop through and push out those high-priced veterans. Yeah, a lot. It's a lot, man. It's a lot to go through. Okay. Last thing I want to talk about. 2023, right and wrong. What does that mean? I will tell you. What that means is I took a look at our offense and I took a look at our defense, and I asked myself, and I actually really wanted to talk about this in the show, but for whatever reason, we had to cut it out and we really couldn't do it. But I wanted to look at ways that things can go right for our offense and ways that things can go wrong. Now, it's really easy to say injuries, like, oh, well, if we're healthy, then X, Y, Z. Yeah, of course, right? That's with anybody. But I wanted to be a little bit more specific. So here's the specific. What can we expect? I just talked like Ricky Ricardo. What can we expect? What can we expect from the most expensive offense, or one of the most expensive offenses in the NFL? So aside from injury, how can this offense flourish? Here's how. Our red zone offense. We were 26th in the NFL in red zone touchdown percentage. So we were pretty bad. What that means is getting into the red zone, how often do you score a touchdown? We were 26th in the NFL. Okay. I talked about it last week. Whatever. I'm not gonna look back. I'm looking to look forward. The fourth highest completion percentage in the NFL, and one of the highest, I think fourth or fifth highest passer rating from the pocket was our new quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. He's on time, gets the ball out quick, knows where he wants to go with the ball. He's accurate. That leads to all that. That leads to all this stuff working and giving you these results, right? Okay. So that's one reason why I believe we can flourish as an offense. We were 9th in touchdown percentage once we passed the 50-yard line last season. So once we got past the 50-yard line, we were top 10 in the league of scoring a touchdown. The problem is we were very bad in the red zone. So what's that tell you? We were relying far too much on our quarterback to throw long passes to get us into the end zone. Now, to his credit, that's really where he made most of his damage, was within the 50 and the red zone, 50 to the 21-yard line. That's where he was throwing the bulk of his touchdowns. Because honestly, we were 9th in touchdown percentage after we passed the 50. We're also 9th in touchdown percentage overall per drive. So we were pretty steady once we had the ball, or once we passed the 50. It was really no difference. The issue that we're seeing is we were second in the league in drives ending in a field goal. What does that tell you? That tells you that we were able to move the ball and we were able to score effectively, but we weren't able to capitalize on the drives as much as we should have. For the type of offense that we had within the red zones, right, and within the 50 to the red zone, we should have been a lot better in the red zone. That's why I feel that that's where I feel our offense could be a lot better this year. Finish those drives once we get into the red zone, be a lot better at finishing, definitely nowhere near the 26th in the red zone. That is pretty bad. Partially, I'm not even going to go there. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to look back. Now, the offense did well despite teams stalling them. You know, if I was a team and I was facing the Raiders, I'd be like, cool, you know what? Let me sag back a little bit more so they can't go over the top on me. If they manage to move the ball into the red zone, fine. We can then buckle up because they're not very good in the red zone. And if we give up 3 points, we give up 3 points. Big deal. And it's hard to come back on teams from a multiple scores down, even if your defense is stopping them. And it's also hard to keep leads when your defense is giving up touchdowns and you're trading them for field goals. So, my good Americans, what I'm saying right now is this red zone improvement is going to be a big deal for us. That's a question that I was asked. Is there, or how much of there a drop off is from last year's quarterback to this year's quarterback? And I sat back and I said, look, they each have their own strengths and their own weaknesses. The biggest difference I see is in the red zone. We're going to be a lot better. We have a quarterback who has proven to be much better in the red zone now. The question is, can he stay on the field, and can he lead us into the red zone as often as our old quarterback did? Ultimately, the main deal that we need to look at is how many points per game are we putting up? Are we putting up more points per game than we did last year? If we're giving up around the same amount and we're scoring a little bit more, we had a lot of close games last year. Maybe we win a couple more games. All right. Okay. How can this offense fall flat? There's a few ways. Now, aside from injury, remember, we're not talking about injury here. Aside from injury, how can this offense fall flat? Well, I am going to talk about an injury, but one that shouldn't affect physically the regular season. Currently, Jimmy Garoppolo has missed whatever practice time that we've had. He hasn't been on the field to take part. It doesn't seem like he's going to be ready for the beginning of training camp. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. For right now, well, I'm not sure. So, the timing really isn't there between Jimmy Garoppolo and a big part of his weaponry, right? That's a huge part of his game, is timing, accuracy, stuff like that. If he can't get into a rhythm with his targets, I can see there being a kind of a stalling factor in the beginning of the year. Again, we're not talking about injury. Another way that the offense can stall and fall flat this season is if teams do what I kind of hinted at them doing earlier in this live, was if they're like, you know what, we loaded the box, the 8th fewest times against these guys last year at the NFL. Let's load the box more. Let's stop Josh Jacobs. Let's force Jimmy Garoppolo to beat us. Let's say they do that. Josh Jacobs' numbers come back down to where they were previously, 1,000, maybe 1,100 yards, something like that. More towards the 3.8, 4.0 yards per carry-ish, around there instead of the 5. Yeah, and then we get what we have. A quarterback who cannot beat you with his arm consistently. He has to be a balanced approach, right? That could be a good reason why we fall flat this year. Also, if Josh Jacobs doesn't sign and holds out, if we have some kind of drop off with our running game, running back wise, talent wise, which they're going to be a little, but if it's a huge drop off, yeah, man, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough for us to be able to move the ball. So those are reasons why this offense is going to be, things can go right with this offense, and reasons why things can go wrong with this offense. Not talking about injuries. Let's see what else we got here. O-line falling off. M85, that's a possibility, but I really don't think that's going to happen, because the offensive line 2 seasons ago got better towards the end of the season, and the offensive line last season steadily progressed and got better as the season went along. Normally, when you see steady improvement multiple years, you're not going to see a steep drop off. You're going to see either a flattening or that continued uptick. Because none of these guys are like super old and like over the hill and stuff like that. These are all younger players who should have a lot of good football left in them. So I don't really see that being a big issue here. Dog's dry. Dwayne Thomas, my sparring partner. Truth is, they dug their own ditch. They came in like novices, getting rid of any remnant of the other regime. This is why this Jacob situation even exists. Our defensive line were good, all gone. I mean, our defensive line was okay. They were good. They weren't really good or great. You had a lot of those guys. See, look, you had a lot of those guys on those 1-year deals, right? You had a lot of those players from the previous regime on those short, expensive contracts. I don't know how long you've been listening, Dwayne, but you can't go all in on a season every single season. And that's what Gruden and Mayock do, is they go all in every single year. Well, screw the future. We're gonna win right now. Well, the problem is you get huge dead cap hits, right? And you get a lot of holes in your roster because you're trying to mix and match and fill with veterans that you pay a lot of money to. The example I gave was you pay a veteran corner $2.5 million for one season when a third or fourth round pick at corner could cost you maybe $3 million over 4 years. So that's a huge deal. What we had here was a lack of controllable assets at a low cost. And we had a lot of high cost assets that were not producing, either because they're not on the roster or they're underperforming. Corey, we're going to talk about defense right now, but all right, cool. Let's go ahead and talk about this. What are your expectations of Jerry Tillery this season? Well, Jerry Tillery showed who he was. Jerry Tillery is a better pass rusher than run stopper. He's a little bit smaller when it comes to D tackle. I think the only bigger D tackle that we have is going to be Nichols. Is that Nichols? Is that who we have left? What's his name? Anyway, the veteran that we kept. And also, I think Neil Farrell is a pretty big defensive tackle. The rest of the guys are like under 300 pounds. And for a D tackle to be under 300 pounds, those are not typically run stuffers, right? So we really only got 2 of them on the roster. The rest of the guys are smaller, more pass rushing types. But yeah, man, I think Jerry Tillery is what he is. He's more of a pass rushing interior defensive lineman. Okay, but I wouldn't even necessarily categorize him as good versus the run. I think if he wants to take that next step in his career, he's going to have to take that Max Crosby step and just be unblockable off the line and shoot gaps and guess right and be good at turning the corner and cutting that angle and catching ball carriers from behind, because he's not a super big guy. He's going to get pushed back if he gets engaged with an offensive lineman. Like I said, he's more of a pass rushing interior defensive lineman. Ray Bosby. Soto, I am not being negative, but our success depends on Garoppolo's health, which is week 7 at best based on teams we face. Do you think Aiden O'Connell will be ready? Well, Jimmy Garoppolo played 4.5 seasons with San Francisco and played 16 games once. He played all 8 games his first season. He played 16 games one season and 15 games another season. So a little more than half the time, he was on the field. what made it look so bad is the injuries that he had were so early in the year. You also have to take a look at this. This is something that I talked about previously, and someone brought it up a couple shows ago. San Francisco, in general, doesn't keep quarterbacks healthy. That's not a Jimmy Garoppolo exclusive thing. What happened last year? They had to throw out Josh Johnson because the backup quarterback and their starting quarterback and their third string quarterback all got knocked out with legit serious injuries. So you have to take a look at that. That's something that you have to take a look at too. It's not something that you just poo-poo like, oh, well, it's bad luck. No, this is like multiple years. You have Beathard and whoever else was backing up Garoppolo. They couldn't stay on the field either. So you got to take a look at that and be like, okay, well, I understand I don't care how tough you are in the NFL. If you get an injury that severe, you're going to miss time. And when an organization has shown not to be able to keep their quarterback consistently on the field, I don't know. I kind of want to look at the organization a little bit more and not just the player. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it's anyone's fault or not. I'm saying it's just there's too much of a track record of getting quarterbacks hurt from that organization to be able just to overlook it. T. Severe. This team has a serious lack of talent from top to bottom. You don't whiff on that many first rounders and expect to have a deep and balanced roster. That is true, but it's not all just first rounders, man. Second, third rounders. We talked about it last year when if you had heard me kind of talking up the draft going up through, you got good players, fourth, fifth round. There's a lot of good players out there. We got a couple of good players last year in the fourth, fifth round, sixth round. There was good players left available in the seventh round. A couple of corners that I wanted to get. But there's good players, man. You take a look. There's the top 10 players. Then from 10 to 50. Then from 50 to like 150, which is about the fifth round or so, the middle of the fourth round. There's that stack of players. After the fourth round, after the fifth and on, it's basically what's your flavor? Because someone can go in the fifth or they can go undrafted and no one really would bat an eye, right? So, all right, Dwayne, think about it. So the regime damages Abram, Farrell, Murray, etc. Before injury this last year, Abram, Perriman were our best behind Crosby. We created more holes. Okay, I don't see, Dwayne, I get what you're saying. Dwayne is saying that we got rid of Perriman and Abram, and they were our best two players after Max Crosby defensively. I think that's incorrect. I don't put a huge number. I don't put a huge amount of emphasis on pure tackling numbers because a lot of those tackles were made down the field. Denzel Perriman is not a modern linebacker in the NFL, especially for what Patrick Graham wants to run, who I still think Patrick Graham is an excellent defensive coordinator. Abram can't cover. Abram couldn't cover a dead body if he was a blanket. Okay? That's just, it is what it is. He's consistently at the bottom, if not the worst in coverage in the NFL in his career. Just because he gets a ton of tackles doesn't mean he's a good safety. He's not a good safety. If he was a little bit bigger, taller, and thicker, and he played linebacker, maybe you got something there. But for a safety, nah, fam. He just ain't it. Denzel Perriman, I think you can get the same thing that Denzel Perriman with Robert Spillane, younger and cheaper. You get 3 years younger, you get a lot cheaper with Spillane. And a lot less injury history as well. But that's the one thing you're not looking at is Perriman and Abram both had injury histories. So you're getting younger, cheaper, healthier. And you're not losing a lot. Yeah, that's as far as that goes. Okay, let's go to the defensive side. So these are ways that things can go right for this defense and ways things can go wrong for the defense. Not talking about injury. Okay, let's start with the right. How can this defense make strides? Okay, Max was like the 4th ranked edge rusher in the NFL last year. Duh, we all knew that he was freaking tits, right? So he continues to rise and to improve, and that unlocks the opposite end of the line. And Chandler Jones continues his stellar play that he had the second half of last year, and it helps unlock the potential early of Tyree Wilson, who comes back healthy, and we're able to cause a lot of pressure and damage to the opposing quarterbacks and opposing offenses. All right. Also, Divine Diablo leads that young linebacker core. Smart play, fly to the ball activity. Maybe a lot easier reads, quicker, easier reads because of the pressure by the front. The reason why I talked about the defensive line first, or the defensive edge rushers first, is because they're the most important thing. Now, kind of piggybacking on that, the secondary takes advantage of the pressure up front and gets more turnovers. We need more turnovers. We're like last in the league in turnovers, man. We got to get more turnovers. And this young core, or not super young, but the younger players on our team step up, and the Smiths and Bennett's and Merrigs and Miles and Hobbs, like those guys step up and play a huge role in turnovers this season, interceptions. So there's another one. Also, the interior defensive line focuses on filling gaps against the run, and they're opportunistic in the pass rush. We should have a good enough pass rush on the outside where the defensive lineman can just worry about shooting gaps and having gap discipline to stop the running game. If we can do that, I can see us making a big leap forward defensively. It all starts with pressure on the quarterback from both edges. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. How can the defense fall flat? Well, Max is going to be Max, right? We're not talking about injuries. Max is going to be Max. Chandler Jones kind of dips back into what he was in the beginning of last year. On top of that, maybe Tyree Wilson isn't as smooth coming out of the blocks, transitioning from college offensive lineman to an NFL defensive lineman. That lack of pressure exposes the rest of the defense. The young linebacker core gets exposed in the passing game, right? That's how things can go wrong. Secondary has to cover too long because of lack of pressure on the quarterback, and that causes them from creating the turnovers that they need to create. Also, the interior defensive line shows their inexperience and they're undisciplined in the run game. And when teams run all over us up the middle, these are ways that things can go wrong, barring injury. What's going to happen? I don't know. Hopefully, most of the good things happen and very few of the poor things happen. We can't expect everything good to happen for us. I mean, I'll take it, right? But what we need to focus on is why things will work and how things can go wrong. If you take that mindset, you can maybe prepare yourself for these things happening, right? Dwayne Thomas, one last time, but you use that logic with Epps. You use his tackles to tout his value. Just saying. Yeah, I mean, Epps is also much better in pass coverage than Abram. So you are paying more for Epps, but you're also getting a better player with Epps, a more reliable player in the pass game. If Epps can give you what Abram gives you tackling wise, which he can, but also be as compared to Abram, a plus defender against the pass, that's what you want. Okay. All right, guys. That's all the time I have today. I'm right at the 1 hour and 5 mark. I appreciate you guys. Again, everyone make sure like, comment, subscribe. I'm actually, this is the first episode that I've streamed live on Twitch as well. I'm looking at doing new platforms. So I want to start doing like Facebook and Twitter lives and YouTube like we're doing, and Twitch, just to grow our fan base more and to get more eyes on us so we can make a better product for you. All right, guys. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you guys. Stay tuned. If anything pops up with the Saquon Barkley thing, I'll hop on and talk to you guys about it for a little bit. But until then, guys, peace.